Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Alison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hello. Welcome, everyone, to your weekly forecast on Cycles of Time podcast for January 6th to January 12th, 2025. We are officially in 2025, and my, oh my, a lot has happened so far, and a lot is prepping itself to happen over the course of this year in the astrology and in the cycles, and so I'm glad you're here. It's a place to ground into the constancy of the cycles, the same order of zodiac seasons, the same order of I Ching gates, the same order of seasons throughout the year. But of course, every year, the way that the other planets and the sun and the moon are all interfacing and dancing with each other, we do have different types of configurations, and we're in one right now, in a good one. It's definitely a time to be alive. So yeah, that's why I do this show, is for me, the looking at the regularities of the cycles and then being able to know that in my body and know that in my blood, so that when the differences in aspects and transits and just random wild cards kind of come into the play, there's a certain reliability to the energetic constancy of each season. So anyway, just a little preface. I've been reflecting, as we do around this time of year, about what this podcast and what this Substack and all this project means to me, and it's definitely it means grounding into the cycles of the earth and the cycles of my body, and it's been an amazing journey, and I'm really excited this year to be bringing in more interactive content surrounding this, so please stay tuned for that. Soon I will be announcing kind of an upcoming offering surrounding just staying in touch with these cycles in a personal way for yourself beyond just listening to the podcast. But for now, we will just jump into the week's highlights and themes. This week, starting last Friday, I rarely go back in time, but I feel like this is an important one. Last Friday, January 3rd, was the Mars opposite Pluto exact opposition. And that's definitely a pretty powerful transit, and that's related to a lot of things that have happened lately, I believe. And so I just thought I'd mention it because Pluto's a very slow-moving planet, and Mars is moving in retrograde motion and then back again. So this opposition will be active for quite some time. So even though it was exact last Friday, Mars opposite Pluto will be feeling it throughout this week and beyond as well. Monday, January 6th, is Mars in retrograde, has been retrograding back through Leo and is entering Cancer. So there'll be a bit of a shift depending on where that falls in your chart. If Mars has currently been in my first house in Leo and is going back into my 12th house of Cancer. And so it's a very different kind of reflection as far as that planet of action and drive and assertion, kind of where it's falling. And so we're, entering into Cancer. And then on Saturday, January 11th, this week, the north node of the moon, the node of fate, known as the dragon's head, is entering Pisces. And the south node is entering Virgo. And this is the axis across the zodiac where eclipses happen. And it is, the North and South Node are kind of about fate and destiny and kind of what we're hungry for in terms of the North Node on a collective level. And the South Node is what we're ready to kind of excrete and let go of. And so the Pisces Virgo axis is different from the Aries Libra axis where the nodes have been for the last 18 months. So that's happening this week. Big kind of shift, one of the major pieces of astrology in 2025. And then this week, coming back to the current moment in human design and the I Ching Wheel of the Year, Monday, January 6th to Friday, January 10th, the sun is transiting through gate 54, which is known as the gate of ambition. And then Saturday and Sunday into next week, the sun enters gate 61, which is the gate of mystery. So I'm calling this episode Ascending to the Depths and the Shifting Nodes of Fate, because this gate of ambition is also known in the Gene Keys as ascension, in its transcendent level, kind of like getting to the top of the mountain. And then the mystery is always associated with the depths for me, and so there's a bit of a mystery in that title, Ascending to the Depths, but I'll explain later. And yeah, the shifting nodes of fate are just a major milestone that's happening this week in the skies. So this week's themes are a shift in what the collective is hungry for and what we collectively need to release, a review and reconsideration of how we care for others and care for ourselves. That's with Mars retrograding back into Cancer. So a focus on care and nurturance, and setting our sights for the top of whatever mountain we're currently climbing with that gate of ambition and ascension. And so we're climbing to the top of the peak, the Capricornian peak this week. And our place in the Wheel of the Year, the diagram, of course, can always be found on astrosomatics.substack.com or on Instagram at astro.somatics or Cycles of Time podcast. And it's a visual as far as like what little slice of the pie, slice of the Wheel of the Year we're in right now. I put it into 52 different slices for each week, and kind of shows which part of the wheel, of these different intersecting wheels of the year that is being highlighted. So loved me some visual aids, and I actually want to upgrade that. So if anyone's like an amazing graphic designer, hit me up. I used to do a lot more graphic design, and I'm not so good at it anymore, but I would love to upgrade this diagram a bit. But for now, it works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So our place in the Wheel of the Year, according to this diagram, is the medicine wheel is that inner year, and it is, or inner wheel, and it's we're in the direction north, which is the direction of wind, elderhood, and spirituality. In the Wuxing 5-element Taoist cycle that is used in traditional Chinese medicine and Qigong, the element that we're in is water, very yin element of water. The pagan season is Yule. The zodiac season is Capricorn from December 21st to January 22nd. The moon phase is waxing away from that new moon last week. And the I Ching hexagram and human design gate is 54 from Monday through Friday. And 54 is known as Thunder over Lake, or the Marrying Maiden in the I Ching, and the gate of ambition in human design. And in Friday and Saturday, the wind over lake is gate 61, which is also known as inner truth in the I Ching, or the gate of mystery. So that sums up the week. It's a busy week of big changes and deep mystery. So yeah, I'm curious what you all think, longtime listeners, about this information, all of these little dips and dobs and data points. If it's better to hear it in the beginning of the episode. Sometimes I do an intro and then the intro goes on and on and then it ends up being halfway through the episode by the time I get to these points. So again, I'm always open to feedback, and I will be sending out a survey soon, but I'm curious about how you would like to receive that information from the beginning or, midway through. Just love to hear back from you. So leave a comment or send me a DM if you have a preference. And just jumping into the new year, still feels very New Year's energy. Doesn't feel quite like a week has passed since New Year's Eve. Spent New Year's Eve in the urgent care for several hours with an infection of a wound on my foot, and got some antibiotics and was going to start the new year off with some like nice regimen of antibiotics, but my body decided it could fight off this infection and it went down, so I didn't take the antibiotics and I'm still alive, so that was good, but not my favorite last day of the year in recent memory. But ended up still being able to go out to a dinner and having a nice lazy day on the 1st. And then it seemed like the engines just revved up and, 2025 arrived with a bang. Pluto versus Mars is the kind of high thematic right now. We have Pluto in Aquarius, opposite from Mars in Leo. Mars retrograding back into Cancer, like I mentioned, but still right at that kind of anaretic point, that degree that's right at the beginning of Leo, end of Cancer, right across from Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And they're not messing around, those two. They're traditionally called malefics in ancient astrology because they're pretty serious contenders. Mars represents kind of cutting and aggression and swords, and Pluto represents kind of like the depths of the things we're not really willing to look at. And there's plenty of good positive things that can come from malefic planets as well, right? They can reveal things that we need to see. But when we have this opposition where Pluto and Mars are kind of mirroring each other, they have different vibes. They're both pretty serious. They want to cut to the chase, but one's very like yang and above ground and fiery, and the other is a bit more like earthy and underground and cold. And so there's definitely a tension in the air. And so yeah, we're entering this new year with our sense of personal power and assertion, in the case of Mars, kind of facing off with, and that's Mars in Leo and Cancer, which are much more personal signs. And they're facing off with humanity's collective skeletons in the basement, which would be Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign of the collective, humanity at large, right? And Pluto is unearthing the skeletons in the closet related to that. So yeah, personal assertion facing off with humanity's collective skeletons in the basement. I will say that feels right to me right now. The transit of Pluto versus Mars can be highly transformative, of course. The key word with Pluto is always transformation. And it can help us as individuals push through stuck situations, things that haven't been moving. With that, it can also bring challenges and conflicts, and that's especially in areas related to power dynamics and corruption. So think about right now, I mean, it's on the collective level and also on a personal level. I feel like most people that I'm talking with are facing some kind of deep, stuck situation. And for me, actually, if I'm being honest, I'm like embarrassed, but I have had this wart on my foot for a while now, and it's like a stuck situation. It's very hard to remove a plantar's wart. I've tried many, many things. And so I'm in this like first house, which is about Mars in my first house, which is about the body, and it's about, our sense of our identity and just, our embodied incarnation. And so I'm here as Mars is retrograding through, my first house, kind of like contending with trying to deal with this health issue that won't go away, and it's like stuck, but I'm making progress. And that was part of the urgent care visit. He was dealing with that. So anyway, TMI perhaps. I just think the word wart is gross. So maybe it's because it's like everything to do with the body can be gross, but that one in particular, it's like the wart on the witch's nose kind of vibes. So I'm just going to own it. It's witchy time to be alive. But that's like a physical stuck situation that I'm hoping that this Mars Pluto is going to help me break through, right, and heal. However, there are definitely some other things going on in the world that are bringing to the surface the challenges and conflicts. And, a stuck situation of feeling like the two-party system is broken, and like obviously we want to have more choice in who governs our country and governs our nation here in the US, and there's a lot coming to the forefront about people who are dissatisfied with that stuck situation and willing to take actions to do something about it. And so that feels very Mars opposite Pluto as well. I feel like since I've had to put my feet up for the past few days, this first week of the new year, leaning into the slowness of that Mars retrograde starting us off in the year, I have been spending too much time on social media, despite my resolutions to scroll less. And I've been on TikTok a bit, and I've just been struck by how, like, there's so many people just talking into these videos, and it's always amazing to me how people can be so just, we have this urge, this deep desire to share our voices and as humans, I think. And so I really appreciate TikTok, especially. I think other social media platforms are too highly curated, or they're just different, and they all have their purpose. But I'm relatively new to TikTok, and it's definitely can feel like a disaster. But other times when I watch through, I'm like super, super inspired by, you know, amidst all of the like hyper superficiality of just like, yeah, people putting on makeup and being very like obsessed with looking a certain way. There's also so much radical authenticity of people who have found a place where they can speak their truths and show off their messy houses, come on there with, you know, looking how they are without getting ready, like in bed or in the car, and seeing in that window into people's lives as they speak about some really deep, profound truths to them it's just kind of hit me in this way that I'm like, if that is banned, that platform, or if we don't have access to it anymore, I'm not super addicted, and my business does not rely on it right now. And a lot of people could be very much more hurt by it. But I'm just really starting to like sit with the recognition of the good of that ability to share. But it is a trip because like it kind of feels like QVC, that old like home shopping network in a lot of ways now. There's a lot of like lives where people are selling like, you know, UV facial shaping ray guns and the vibrator board that I now have in my home. So I'm being targeted with many like people selling that live, like vibrating on their board and selling it. And, you know, of course, the contouring makeup videos that are just ubiquitous. And so it's all of this kind of just like QVC-esque home shopping network sales, very blatant sales. And then you scroll through, and the next video after one of these people just selling like this Chinese product are, you know, you have this next person who's really like scratching their itch to be an investigative journalist. And there's so many like DIY investigative journalists out there right now, which is amazing. And also kind of like you have to be hyper vigilant about who to trust and what to trust, and do your own research and have media literacy and all this. But as the mainstream media takes a complete dump and is just, I just can't, you know, it's so unreliable. I'm like, you know, do like kind of keeping up what's going on. And so it's like, well, what are all these DIY investigative journalists saying? And they're bringing us minute to minute breaking news about drones and floating plasmoid orb aliens and this foggy smart dust that's been across the southeast that people are saying is like not fog, but it's this like dust that has nanoparticles. It's like watching everyone. And yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy theory and a lot of like really good questioning of like, what is going on right now? Like, what is going on? And I'm really enjoying allowing myself to indulge in this type of media while I can, right? Just super grateful for free media in the way that it currently exists. And so that's my little soapbox about that. But it just, through that channel, I'm receiving a lot of like what the hell is going on kind of vibes about all of the things that are happening. We've had so many plane crashes in the last week, and sick people crashing trucks into innocent people, sending my heart out to New Orleans, a place where I have a lot of memories and a lot of friends, and, thinking about that tragedy that just happened. And then this Tesla Cybertruck blowing up in front of Trump Tower, and like everything that's coming to light in lieu of that. And it just feels like that image of, the Tesla Cybertruck with Trump Tower in Las Vegas is like this iconic symbol for 2025. Not to be a fearmonger and not to even lean into like, well, that sets the tone, but just, wow, what a freaking image. Welcome to 2025. There's been so much to process as far as like what is real, what's not, what's going on, who do we believe. So we last week I discussed a little bit about ringing in 2025, the new year being in the human design gate of the fighter. So that feels kind of accurate. It's a gate of kind of struggling against systems that are unfair, fighting the good fight, deciding what's worth fighting for. And I'm just seeing that all around in personal and collective ways. And I'm curious if you spent any time last week deciding what was worth fighting for in your world. Because I do think it's one of those weeks, the new year, the New Year's resolution, the New Year's contemplations and reflections. I just feel like that's a really good question to ask ourselves right now, because there's infinite number of potential fights that can come our way. And it's about really aligning ourselves with our values in this deep winter time and simplifying, and not trying to be, saviors of the entirety of the world at every given moment, because it's a burnout, asking for burnout very quickly. So as for me, I'm fighting for love, and I don't actually feel corny saying that. I think in the past I might have, but I'm fighting for love. And I think that love pretty much covers the bases of all the other things on my list that are worth fighting for. In a world where it's getting harder and harder to trust anyone or anything that we see, I know that deeply human feeling when I meet the eyes of my daughter or my partner or my parents or my friends, and even some strangers on the street. I feel love, like this deep, kind of just deep feeling in my heart, and know that those people that I am making eye contact with are worth fighting for, and for that connection. And I think it's worth fighting my way through the psyops and the distractions and the deliberate attempts to overwhelm and confuse and weaken, because that is the times that we're living in. And it's good to kind of just suspend the disbelief at this moment and say, like, yeah, okay, we have to get real with our own hearts. And so for me, it's really just like represented by that eye contact and that shared humanity and that love that is real, that can't be taken away. And that means a lot of in-person encounters and less social media type encounter, less internet encounters. But even there, it's like looking into people's eyes across the digital bounds is also possible, and just feeling like this humanity is worth fighting for. And that's Pluto and Aquarius to me. It's like shared humanity that is worth upholding. Instead of getting afraid. I think a lot of people are just getting real afraid right now, and there's a lot of reason to have fear and to be alert, but not to let that get you taken away from what is worth fighting for. I heard today that Meta, the grandparent company of Facebook and Instagram was introducing thousands or more, hundreds of thousands of AI profiles onto Instagram and Facebook. And I would say that to be certain, if they're announcing it at this moment, they've probably already been doing it for some time. And there's been a lot of backlash to this because when you're talking about eye contact and shared humanity, and then recognizing that there's deliberately like bots and like people, cyborg, like tech products pretending to be real humans with real identities and genders and races and, all of these things, like that makes the decision in my mind to fight for love as read through eye contact, seem all the more important. Like connecting with people in a slow and deliberate manner and just focusing on as much unity as we can. As we enter the coldest cold of winter, there's another breaking news headline that when I was writing this episode out or planning it out, I was reading some breaking news, and just to kind of get the pulse check on the New Year's vibes. But another headline said it's about to get dangerously cold even for winter, was the headline. And there's supposedly this polar vortex coming to the southeast and across the whole eastern part of the U.S. And the west is still a bit warm, but at New Mexico here, we're kind of right in the middle of it. And my partner's trying to travel to help his grandfather in Arkansas, and it's like might be freezing over, and it just feels like any type of movement feels like there's this stuckness that I mentioned with Mars opposite Pluto. So I think, I'm feeling the cold, the bluster. And during these times of darkness and cold, it's important to hold what it is that we're fighting for in our pockets and close to our warm bodies and our hearts all the time. Like I have done this, and I would recommend, writing down what is worth fighting for at its most basic or its most complex on a piece of paper, and just putting it in like your jacket pocket or your underwear drawer, having sort of printed out and put on your mirror, staying close to our values and what we care about is so important right now. I feel like thinking about winter, just in a general way, thinking about the time of year, the cycle that we're in right now, I feel like I've seen a lot of posts in the kind of like hippie, witchy, regenerative space lately about how winter is meant for rest and sleep and coziness, and a lot of terms that other cultures outside of like Western American culture have that are related to being slow in the winter. And I really always appreciate these posts because I too celebrate my new year like many ancient cultures did later into spring with either Imbolc in February or the Lunar New Year, which is usually in February, or the spring equinox in March. So I definitely agree that beginning a pressurized and energetic new year in the coldest and harshest time of the year is a concept that we should call into question, and we should kind of reflect on, like, is that actually right? But I've been thinking about this, like, because I've just seen a lot of media in my little bubble, I guess, about how like winter is not for resolutions. Winter is not like, this is not the new year, at all. And even I have said it. This is the time for sleep and rest and digestion and being slow and sitting with candles and setting intentions and not trying to rush into all the planning. However, I do think that there's this emphasis on rest and sleep and coziness that can be taken a bit too far, because I think what that does is it allows us to, it kind of under-recognizes the amount of energy and ambition and aspiration and fight and drive that is happening in the wintertime. I look at astrology and the wheel of the year ecologically, and I think that if we look at winter, like what's happening with plants, The flowers and leaves are dead above ground, obviously. So it feels like things are still and sleeping and resting, which they are. They're not like actively growing upward. However, when you look at what's happening to the soil beneath the plant life, is that the soil is being actively created during the winter. That this is when it's like there's these processes like ice and weather and snow causing erosion and, fire, like controlled burns or that are allowed to happen because it's not as risky, during the winter months to kind of get rid of the excess kind of plant debris. And there's just a lot of processes, natural processes, where the soil is being formed from the plant matter that has spent the spring and summer half of the year growing upward. And so when I think of winter, it's not rest per se. It's just a very different process of work. And that's why, I think Capricorn being this winter sign is associated with work and ambition and fight and a certain energy, right? A lot of action in Capricorn, being the sea goat that can traverse all kinds of terrain. But so I'm kind of just like calling in a little bit the people who are like that winter is all about just like rest, in the sense that like rest means zoning out. I think that winter is a very yin time as opposed to yang time for sure. But the yin is like, it's not just tapping out. I had a chi diagnostic reading recently by Jay Marola, the Body Innate, who was on the podcast for Sagittarius season for an interview, really wonderful interview. And she kind of, we just sat and chatted about kind of like where I'm at in life and what's going on. And I came in with this, like, I've been tired. I've been really just tired and I don't want to be tired anymore. It's the new year. And so I was like, can you give me some practices that could like energize me a bit? She's like, yeah, sure. But like, let's start here by laying on the ground and just holding the energy space between our hands and letting our roots kind of slowly drop into the ground. And after that, after I did, 10 minutes of just being on the ground in having that space be held for me as I lay on the ground, I got up and I was like, that is it. That is what I needed, was to lean into the uncomfortable process of allowing the surrender to happen, and also like paying attention to that surrender and not saying like, oh, it's winter, it's time to surrender and to not effort and to not work. So that means that I can just kind of like tap out and scroll on my TikTok because I'm lazy and I'm letting myself be lazy and in bed and watch movies and whatever. Nothing against all of that. But I do think that like the more we can like associate winter with a time of attention rather than efforting, but also recognize that attention, especially paying attention to something that is a slow moving process, like soil creation, erosion, an almost invisible, timeless, slow process. Paying attention to that, or like giving it your full and undivided love and attention, instead of being like, oh, this is like now a time where I can be distracted. I think that is almost harder than the upward efforting and growth of the spring and summer yang seasons, because our culture does not allow for that to happen. It associates like slowness with laziness, right? And so it's almost hard to break that. But like, what if we treated slowness with reverence, with attention, with doing one thing at a time during the winter, and recognize like that's going to be hard. That's not going to be something that's just like, oh, this is my, I'm getting time off. It's actually time very on, I'd say, in the winter. And so that's my soapbox about that. It's been something I've really been paying a lot of attention to, especially when I'm thinking about the gate of ambition this week, because I'm like, in my mind, I see the sea goat getting to the top of the mountain. And that's like, oh, that's efforting, right? But I'm like, no, what if we can see Capricorn, the sea goat, as like the type of effort is non-effort. And the type of work is surrender and is yin inward kind of work of like getting to the roots. So that kind of explains my title of the episode, Ascending to the Depths, because there is this certain visual ascension, just like there's like this goal, this dream, this mountaintop that we aspire to be able to see further and connect with the unknown, the great mystery, a lot greater. But in order to do that, it's not about just like slogging away and putting a lot of effort. It's like attention. So yeah, that's been a big kind of thing, epiphany for me this week. And yeah, winter is a time for more sleep and more rest, but it's not a time for only sleep and only tuning out type of rest. It's definitely a time to slow down, to conserve energy, and to focus on the deep and sometimes dirty and mucky underworld work that is necessary to help sustain the life above ground that will sprout out in a few months from now when spring comes. So soil, just think about soil. What's going on under this? It's an unknown, it's a mystery, and it's freaking cool. Soil scientists, if you ever have a chance to just like get lunch with a soil scientist, I have a couple friends who are in the soil biz or working with that, and I'm just like, yeah, hell yeah, you guys are amazing and awesome. And because it's not glamorous, right? It's like, but it's amazing. It's everything. It's the conditions that create life. And so let's pay attention to that kind of stuff. I'd say the gate of the fighter that we just transited through last week during the new year is a prime example of this type of underworld work. Like January 1st is a time for concentrated and important inner work and underground work, and the work like determining what is fighting for and what brings us joy and what we aspire towards and what our dreams in the dark nights are telling us about the great mysteries. So now that we've spent some time thinking about what's worth fighting for to get us through the climate of pre-inauguration winter 2025, this week, the sun is moving to the gate of ambition and then followed by the gate of mystery. So again, I just love the story arc of each zodiac season. It's a beautiful visual that I want to illustrate and just like put up on the wall, because I think each zodiac season and the gates, the human design I Ching gates that are within it have like just a gorgeous type of story that's being told. So we're still in Capricorn season, and I liken this journey to the sea goat's ascent up a craggy mountain. And first, joy is the gate that's around Christmas time. So it's climbing the mountain with joy, and then with a fight to overcome obstacles around New Year's. And then now this first week of January with kind of an ambitious resolve to get to the top. And then by the weekend, this sea goat will reach the top of that mountain after a grueling climb filled with, all those adjectives that I just mentioned. And once we reach the top of a mountain, you can look up at the skies and the stars and the lands that are beyond the mountaintop, the clouds, the planets, the other valleys and mountain ranges that are surrounding the mountain that you, sea goat, are currently on. And so by the weekend, our ambition will lead us to bear witness to the great beyond, and the recognition that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves and larger than our current struggles, our current mountain that we're on. So the key in this ascension is, after thinking about all of this, like what is ambition, what is ascension, and as it relates to Capricorn, I'd say that the key is that the only way to actually reach that peak and get through these final struggles and obstacles that are kind of intensifying on the final stretch of the mountain climb is first to ascend to the depths of your internal world. So I could say descend instead of ascend to the depths. But since we're talking about our own yin world, our own internal world, it doesn't necessarily have to be directional, up or down, above or below. It's really like our internal yin, mysterious, subterranean, kind of unknown plutonic world is a place we can ascend to in the same way that we ascend to the top of the mountain. And it's getting to that inner place of inner resolve that we must get to make it through this final stretch. Richard Rudd, the founder of the Gene Keys, mentions a line from the 54th hexagram on the I Ching, and he's referring to this hexagram as one of the great mystical lines of the whole I Ching. And so I'll paraphrase what he said. He said, 54, line 4, is called the Sin Eater. In order to ascend to the highest, one must first of all make the ultimate sacrifice and descend into the lowest. That's what this whole 54th journey has been about. Like Christ after his crucifixion descends down into hell, and then on the third day he ascends to heaven. This is a universal myth, but also more than a myth. The more the white light of your divinity is progressively realized, the more unbearable it becomes for your being. So the brighter the inner light burns, the deeper it burrows into the form principle. Heaven has to come to earth. As this inner light returns to its source, it has to burn through all of the collective memory held in its DNA. It has to eat and consume the sins of the whole, just like Christ. And this will one day happen to each of us. This is the final transformation. Every single cell in our body must become free. So Richard Rudd sends out it's called The Pulse. If you sign up on the Gene Keys website, he sends out a kind of audio transmission for each one of the Gene Keys for the transit that the sun is currently going through. And I like to read that. It's just a little bit of a different energy from the Gene Keys book. And I listened to the transmission for Gate 54 while I was taking a bath earlier and just kind of really soaking into that contemplative mode that is encouraged in the Gene Keys, which I love. The idea of just contemplation of these universal kind of human adjectives and values. But this one really, he talks a lot about Christ throughout it as a, cultural icon. And I don't have that much a relationship with Christianity myself, honestly. And so sometimes I'm just like, what are you talking about? But I definitely know the stories. And I was kind of adding this imagination of the Christ figure during this time of year, kind of, and how this association with this Capricornian descending so that we can ascend, going into the deepest yin, that deep soil creation, so that we can kind of reach a place of being able to clarify and understand our goals and create a healthy soil for everything else to grow out of. So I just love this idea of the light, like heaven or whatever it is, this light kind of coming to us in our bodies. And then in order to reach back to its source, outside of ourselves, it has to burn through all of the different problems and people and eating the sins of our self and our places where we've been untrue or been lying to ourselves. And that is what that's the final push towards the top of the mountain. And this season is like embracing our so-called shadow side or the darkness or the depths, so that we may ascend to the top of the mountain. I love this image, because it's related to Capricorn and a sign that's associated with ambition and aspiration, because it's always been a little bit strange to associate those words with the darkest, coldest, and most yin time of year, because I don't feel ambitious in a sense of upward growth, but I think that this contemplation has helped me really see what ambition and aspiration and ascension of the mountains in each of our lives are really, how they're really conquered in actuality. And it's through this yin, this internal, mysterious place. And the more we indulge in that mystery and get to know it, the more that we're able to connect with the great big mystery that awaits at the top of our aspirational mountain. So, yeah, good stuff there. This gate also feels, gate 54, feels really aligned with this big astrological transit that's happening this week, which is that the lunar nodes of fate are changing signs and shifting into Pisces and Virgo. So it all felt very related, as it often does in these, week by week forecasts, where I was like, oh, interesting. I'm contemplating yin ambition and ascending into the depths. And then here we are shifting these nodes of fate into Pisces and Virgo, which bring up a lot of the same themes. After a year and a half with the north node of the moon in Aries and the south node in Libra, on Saturday, the nodes shift to the north node in Pisces and the south node in Virgo. So the nodes of the moon indicate collective destiny, as I mentioned before, with the north node's placement in the sky, kind of speaking to what we're collectively hungry for and what we're pulled towards. And the south node's placement is revealing what we as a human culture need to release at this time in the cycle. So the nodes are areas of the zodiac where the moon is at its apogee, and they're parts of the sky where the eclipses happen each year, with the eclipse times bringing these themes of hunger and release to the foreground. The nodes of the moon change signs in reverse across the zodiac compared to how the planets move. So if you're looking at an astrology chart, you'll notice that as the planets transit in a counterclockwise direction, the nodes are transiting in a clockwise direction. And so it makes the story that unfolds as they change sign a really interesting one, kind of going backwards. The North Node in Aries over the past couple of years has meant that here on Earth, we've been collectively hungry for agency and action and the expression of our own personal willpower. Aries is the infant, Aries is the ram, Aries is the go-getter, just like seize the day type of energy. And so we've had the North Node there for the past 18 months where we're kind of hungry for that kind of expression and our own agency. And the South Node in Libra has encouraged us all to release relationships and relational patterns that are not based in integrity and honesty. And, Libra is all about the scales. It's all about balance and harmony and relationality. And so, having the South Node there is about what we need to let go of when it comes to real relationships. So with the North Node now moving into Pisces for the next year and a half, the collective hunger is shifting from individual agency back into this desire to merge and flow with the currents of life. And the South Node's move to Virgo is shifting us from a collective release of toxic relationship patterns with the South Node in Libra to a collective release of the need to analyze everything. I'm a Virgo sun, and I endorse this message. Pisces and Virgo are both signs of service and healing and spirituality and kind of connection to source. But while Virgo channels this by breaking things down into manageable parts and then building it back up, Pisces does this healing and service and connection to source through swirling everything together in the great cosmic sea and in the mystery, if you will. So I believe that's kind of how it ties into this gate of mystery. It's like the North Node is about ambition. It's about hunger. It's the head of the dragon, while the South Node is the tail of the dragon, Rahu and Ketu. But so I thought it was interesting that we're talking about ambition and how ambition, this yin way of true, deep ambition, leads to a mystery, leads to connecting in a more authentic way with the greater mysteries. And here we have North Node in Pisces kind of doing the same thing. So cool parallels this week. To me, the fact that the agency of Aries North Node is shifting into the merging spirituality of Pisces, really echoes the human design gates that we're translating through. And it's rather rare to see the words ambition and mystery in a single sentence. I don't think I've ever kind of put those in the same place, but having ambition and mystery together is kind of a reminder that no matter how hard we strive to be better and to know things and to succeed, to get to the top, there's always going to be a greater mystery waiting for us at the top. And so the more we can connect with our internal mysteries, the more prepared we will be for that larger mystery that awaits. So this week, try to see that mystery for the expansive beauty that it is, and trusting your deeper mystery, your intuition, and finding joy in exploring the unknown. I'd say this year, 2025, and in this life, this whole damn life, despite their inherent tragedies and challenges, they're true gifts. Our life is a gift, and this year is a gift, and the mystery of it is a gift. So I'm leading into the year with that. I think letting your ambitions be the lights that guide you up to the peak where the mystery can reveal itself in all its glory is the way to move forward. That pretty much sums up my story in my head of ambition and mystery. And so if you want to stop listening now to this episode, we're at 52 minutes. You totally can. I give you permission. But if you want to stay a little bit longer, I'm going to just kind of wrap through the I Ching and the gene keys as it relates to the gate of ambition and the gate of mystery, because I like to add those features in. And it's not as personal of a contemplation here, but just kind of a little more informational. So starting out with the gate of ambition, this Monday through Friday, it's all about the energy to rise. And that's whether it's in your career or your personal life or even spiritually. This gate is found in the root center in human design, like a lot of Capricorn gates are. And those are, it's a pressure center. So it's like a certain burst of motivation that like pushes you to aim higher and achieve more. And it's not a steady grind. It's an energy that comes in waves. So it's all about acting when the timing feels right and remembering that tapping into our innermost slow place and paying attention to what's real inside of us is going to help us identify it's going to help that burst of motivation kind of come through. So it's like, I'm not saying go out into the world and just like climb and effort, but it's like, it's the reverse. It's the descent. Gate 54 is the spark that fuels your desire to climb the mountain. And it's not just about material things. It's definitely about personal and spiritual growth here. When this energy is used with purpose and intention, it can help you achieve meaningful goals. And on the flip side, if it's driven by ego or external pressure, it might leave you feeling really exhausted or unfulfilled. So be slow. Pay attention to your inner workings. What is true for you? In the gene keys, the shadow of 54 is greed. And this energy can look like just the endless hustling for money and power or recognition without deeper satisfaction, but just needing more. And I think we're all very aware of how much greed there is out in the world and how it's doing nobody any favors. So contemplate what greed is to you at that level and how greed leads to that kind of exhaustive efforting at a time when we shouldn't be doing that. A season while we shouldn't be doing that. And then at the gift level in the gene keys, 54 is known as aspiration. And this is where ambition turns into something bigger. It's kind of like working towards goals that don't benefit just you, but also others and life itself, and striving for growth with heart. And then the city level is ascension, and it's recognizing that at its highest frequency, ambition isn't about climbing at all, but more so about rising above the need to consider climbing only as a mountaintop. Like, it's rising above the need for worldly success and finding a deeper and more spiritual sense of purpose. So yin, yin, yin. Lean into the slow. Pay attention to it. Don't tune out. In the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes, hexagram 54 is known as the marrying maiden. And this is talking about context, or talking about the ambition in the context of knowing your role and working within systems and timing your moves wisely. So it's kind of this like concubine, not efforting, like there's no way to effort to become the empress. However, if you work within the systems and time your moves and tune into your own personal desires and stay slow, then you can marry the emperor as the maiden that comes in. And, that's some good ancient Chinese, like, cultural reminder there. But it's a reminder to stay grounded and ethical while pursuing your goals and balancing bold action with patience and slowness and humility. So from Monday to Friday this week, as the sun transits through this gate 54, I would say you can work with it by riding the waves, recognizing that it's not a constant, although it's an ambitious energy. It's like, you're tired, you're towards the top of this mountain. It's not like a constant kind of energy. So don't expect to go full throttle all the time, and rest when you need to recharge, and kind of just wait for that build up, that kind of energy and of motivation to come through about what really matters. You can also this week take some time to think about what success really means to you. I'm wondering if it's about the paycheck, or if it's about like worldly success, or is there something deeper? So really just taking time to listen to yourself and recognizing that if you use your drive to build up more than just yourself and use your motivation and ambition to create opportunities for others to grow with you, then that would be the most soil-like thing you could do, right? You can't like choose which seeds are going to sprout out of your deep, mysterious unfoldings of soil creation in the yin of winter. It's a universal thing. So it's like enriching your soil with ambition to be the best soil you can be for the most amount of seeds to sprout out of it, the perfect amount of seeds. So soil. I'm into it. Anyway, gate 54 is cool gate. I like it. It's my daughter's Pluto gate, and so I've been thinking about that a little bit. It's fun to have a kid and look at their chart and be like, oh wow, how can I like make this, the higher frequency of this come through, so she's not greedy, but she's like creating conditions for lots of seeds to sprout. And then I'm just like, no, stop, don't do that. But it is always interesting to look at the gates for people that you know or that are close to you and see how they show up. Gate 54 is powerful energy when it's used intentionally. It's definitely more about climbing the ladder. It's definitely about reconsidering what that word ambition means. I do like aspiration better, but both of them have a certain quality that can feel a little bit ick when we are used to seeing them in the context of greedy people and greed within ourselves. So it's all about this week just making the climb meaningful and aligned with your values, and knowing that when ambition is serving something bigger, it becomes a force for transformation for yourself and those around you. And that really does line up nicely with the North Node entering Pisces. There's some shadow sides to that, which I'll get into throughout the weeks, as far as like, it's aspiring to merge it's like having a desire to merge with our external surroundings too much, to a fault, for a lack of agency. However, there's a lot of beauty in that, and it's an understandable desire after having the hunger for an Aries type ambition to then go into this Pisces ambition. It's like ambition for the mystery. So moving on to Friday and Saturday and into middle of next week, the Gate of Mystery is Gate 61, and it's known as the Gate of Inner Truth as well. And it is one of the only Capricorn gates that lives not in the root center in the body graph, but it's in the head center. And it has the energy of questioning and contemplating and uncovering life's great mysteries. It's definitely like this goat that's climbed all the way up and gotten deep in touch with its inner resolve and its inner ambition and then gotten to the top of the mountain. There's then this wow moment. It's kind of like, oh, I'm at the top of the mountain. And then there's a kind of a drive within it, being a head center gate, to have like this pressure to seek the truth and find deeper meaning in everything and explore the unknown and get beyond surface level answers and dive deep into the big whys of existence. It's like a spark of inspiration. If you've ever climbed to the peak of a mountain, I've done it. I am not a huge mountaineer, but I've climbed several peaks in my life. One highlight was when I think it was my 23rd birthday. I was living in China, 22nd or 23rd birthday, a long time ago now, but I was living in China. I was teaching English for a year in China, and I decided to go to a mountain. There's several really famous kind of holy mountains in China, and one of them is called Emei Shan. It's Mount Emei, and it's near Chengdu in Sichuan province, and it has a lot of amazing monasteries, monkeys living along the mountain. You climb up these ancient stone steps, and you can stay at monasteries and eat delicious vegetarian food and hang out with monkeys and monks at the same time. Just like on the side of this like incredibly gorgeous mountain. I don't know the elevation or how high it was that I climbed, but it was a trek. And we got to this one monastery the night before my birthday and then woke up at about probably 2 a.m. and started hiking to be able to reach the peak by sunrise, and got to the top, and there's this incredible giant gold Buddha at the top and just the clouds for days. And it was like the sun was just rising and peeking through the clouds, and the Buddha was lighting up, and it was just the most unbelievable ascension, to get through. I mean, I think about the ambition that it took to wake up in the middle of the night and hike in the darkness. And there was a French guy staying at the monastery that we met that night who decided to do that. And I probably would have slept in and gotten there mid-morning and not had as much of a incredible experience. But he was like, no, let's do it. Let's wake up at 2 and just go and get there. And so I followed him the whole way, and he was a very good hiker, very in shape. And I was wearing little like Bruce Lee shoes that I'd bought at the base of the mountain, that like just canvas shoes to hike a very tall mountain, which was a really bad idea at the end of the day, but it worked. I felt very, very cool on the way up. As I was like hanging with the monkey, I felt very just in the zone. But anyway, followed the guy to the top, went through that deep, deep inner resolve. It was kind of like a psychedelic experience, and then got to this real like moment at the top of the mountain, and just feeling the mystery of like, whoa, I've never seen a sunrise that as I reached the top of a mountain, and like this giant massive Buddha. And like another cool thing about the top of this mountain is that it has that thing where you can look at your shadow, like it's above the cloud level, so you can see your shadow. If you go to the side and look down off one of the cliffs, you can see your shadow on top of the clouds, and the sun reflects, and so it looks like there's a rainbow around your shadow. And apparently this has led to many people jumping into the clouds to their demise, because as a spiritual kind of experience of reaching that top of the mountain and being like, whoa, there's a rainbow around my shadow and I'm in heaven. But I saw a rainbow around my own shadow and was like, whoa, the mystery was just like amazing. And because I'd had the inner ambition and resolve and tapped in with myself over the course of just being silent and hanging out with monkeys, and monks that were super funny and just like laughing and being wonderful. And I felt deeply connected to my inner world. So by the time I reached the upper peak, I was like, whoa, I feel a lot more connected to the great mystery of this mountain, the history of it, the mythology of it, the sky above, the, rainbow formation around my shadow, just everything. So cool. I didn't plan to talk about this. It just kind of hit me as a memory when I'm discussing that. But other mountains I've climbed as well, never quite for that sunrise moment, but getting to the peak is always this it just feels like, oh my God, I'm so much smaller. And this mountain was my everything, and conquering the obstacles on the mountain were the only thing that mattered for the last little stretch of time. And then you get to the top and it all just, it does something spiritual to you where you can see just everything, right? And the curvature of the earth and the topography and just things you can't see when you're not on the top of a mountain. So profound insights, sparks of inspiration, definitely coming through. So that is what the energy of the weekend is about. And yeah, it's just an urge to understand the universe and your purpose within it and all of the hidden and not so hidden connections in life. So just like reaching the peak of a mountain after being exhausted and climbing all night, this energy can feel a bit intense or overwhelming, especially if you're looking at the mystery without an answer, and feeling the pressure to get an answer to the mystery. I think I've really enjoyed the difference in definition between a secret and a mystery. And a secret is basically something there is an answer that is known, but it's being hidden from us, and usually deliberately, and it's held by someone else, and it's kind of a power dynamic within secrets. But mystery is open-ended, and everyone has access to the mystery, and there's probably also not a concrete answer. So as hard as that can feel right now in this time of all the just mis and disinformation and confusion that's out there, when you get into this gate of mystery energy, just tap into mystery as a blessing, as a connection to the divine and to yourself, and try not to put too much pressure to find an answer to the questions that maybe don't have answers at this time. It's a good time this weekend to connect to intuitive truths and your inner clarity, and just sit with the question rather than trying to find the answer to it. I really like the idea of, I don't even remember exactly where I learned this, but it's a meditation that I do called fountain meditation that I might just record as well as a side thing, because it's a fun one. But it's basically this idea that as human beings, we are have an energy magnetic field that is similar to the magnetic field of a planet, like the Earth. There's this kind of toroidal shape and toroidal structure to a magnetic field where it's traveling, like the energy is coming out of the top and traveling around the sides and then coming back into the object through the bottom and creating this kind of donut shape of energy. And I really like thinking about knowledge and knowing things in this context, where instead of thinking about wanting an answer and then looking up from your brain and expecting the answer to come down into it, what actually needs to happen is putting the questions out and into the universe through your head, and then letting them rise up into the air above you, into the space above you, and then kind of fall down around your body like a fountain. And then once they hit the ground, knowing that your feet will reabsorb them. I'll put a picture in the Substack because it's helpful to see this as an image, but it's the human magnetic, heart magnetic field that really works when you're thinking about wanting an answer to something. It's if I could just put that out into the universe, then it will come back around and it'll come back through my body rather than coming right back into my head. So that's how I like to think about the Gate of Mystery. In the Gene Keys, the shadow of 61 is psychosis. That's always a fun one. It basically can just lead to psychosis through overthinking and obsession and feeling trapped in mental loops and trying to solve a riddle that has no answer and driving yourself crazy in the process. So, I definitely know what it feels to feel a little psychotic with wanting answers and not being able to get them these days. It feels real. It feels like a very present thing for a lot of people. So if we up-level the frequency of that and don't drive ourselves crazy, we reach the gift level in the Gene Keys of inspiration. And this is embracing curiosity without needing certainty. And that makes the energy of all of it shift. It becomes, when you operate as a curious person who is able to just accept some mystery in your life, you become a source of inspiration because you can find beauty in the mystery and share unique insights with the world without being dogmatic about it is definitely right or it's definitely wrong. And that is not necessarily human nature right now. But I aspire, if we're talking about aspirational qualities, I definitely aspire for curiosity to take center stage in my life. And that is kind of divine inspiration. The city level at the highest frequency of this gate is Gate 61 is sanctity. And sanctity is basically a state of complete connection with the divine. It is that unity with your shadow that has a rainbow around it, where there's no need to question and you experience peace simply being part of the greater mystery. How cool. In the I Ching, hexagram 61 is known as inner truth, and it represents the clarity that comes from listening to your inner voice and aligning with your authentic self and trusting the deeper wisdom that comes up when you quiet the noise of doubt and external distractions and the need to know. I actually found a really funny comic that was oh, never mind. It just had a lot of I need to knows on it. And it was it just hit me pretty hard because sometimes I can really get overthinky and I can get really needing of answers in order to feel calm and sane. And that is a wild goose chase, y'all, to get to find the truth and then feel like you've reached the plateau and then it's over. It's it's never over. You're never going to reach a mountain where there isn't another mountain or some cool formations you've never seen from the top beyond it. So yeah, it's experience peace in being a part of the greater mystery. The I Ching reminds us in this inner truth piece that true understanding doesn't come from overthinking. It comes from trusting intuition and letting the truth emerge naturally from the bottom up rather than the top down, y'all. So working with Gate 61 over the course of this weekend, don't force the answers. Just know that some questions aren't meant to be solved right away or ever, and let your curiosity guide you without needing immediate conclusions. Let those curiosity, those questions spill out from your head like it's a huge fountain if you want to, but don't expect them to just come back down right away because they wouldn't be the right answers. And embrace the mystery if you can. Find joy in exploring the unknown instead of getting stuck in that mental pressure. Know that it's okay to not have all the answers. And when clarity does strike, share your insights and know that your perspective that has come up through your body can inspire others. So know that your intuitive flashes are powerful and trusting the mystery or submerging in the mystery. Mystery is such a Pisces thing for me too. So this North Node shift really makes a lot of sense here with mystery is I think mystery can feel scary where again, you're collapsing into it and you don't have any definition anymore. But instead of collapse, you can surrender but still pay attention. That's what I was talking about with all the yin stuff, is that you don't have to stop paying attention. You don't have to stop working. It's just a different type of work. It's a different type of something when we get into these depths of merging with the mystery. So yeah, Gate 61 is a very cool one. It calls us to balance the mental pressure to know everything with the beauty of simply being in the mystery, allowing the truth to unfold, and leading to moments of profound inspiration and a deeper connection to the great design of life. So there's an astrologer. I keep saying so. Sometimes I notice these little vocal patterns and I'm just going to ignore it. But I'm paying attention to myself, so that's good. Anyway, there's an astrologer that I really like named Alice Sparkly Cat. Some of you may have heard of them. And they wrote a 2025 horoscopes, and I read mine for my rising sign and thought that it really fit the theme of surrendering to other ways of knowing that are conveyed in the Gate of Mystery. So I'll just read that to you to kind of finish this out today. And it said, this was for Leo rising, but applies to the general energy field right now. It says, 2025 is about empowering yourself with knowledge. Right now, we live in an era of really high literacy. For most of us, our grandparents could not read. They could not read written words, but they had other skills. They could read the weather, the land, and they knew how to dig wells. For our generation, the global literacy rate is over 80%. We have just moved through decades of globalization and nationalization, during which we traded our people's connections to land in exchange for institutional education. And now we hear all these complaints all the time about people not knowing how to read. What don't you know how to read? For sure, we don't know how to read. We no longer know how to read the way our grandparents knew how to read. We have lost a lot of reading comprehension over the years, and a lot of us are trying to sense our way back. Leo, you know things. I know that you know things. But the way that knowledge is institutionalized makes us all feel like we don't know things. 2025 is about learning how to read and is also about honoring the things that you know. You know so much. We have also all lost a lot of reading comprehension. What makes you feel empowered in the knowledge that you have? And the questions for 2025 are, what do you know? What do you know how to read? And what would you like to learn how to read? Really good stuff as it ties into the Gate of Mystery, the Gate of Ambition, the ascending to the depths, and the nodes changing, shifting into Pisces and Virgo. I love that. I'm teaching my daughter to read actual letters and words right now, and of course that's important. But my goodness, when I think about reading the weather, reading the land, really understanding, reading our own bodies, not needing to look outward for that type of stuff, we have lost so much, right? And so I just really appreciated that, and I will leave you with that lovely horoscope that applies to everyone. And yeah, think about what you want to learn how to read, what types of things. I want to learn more about soil. Truly, this season is just give me more soil information and just embodied knowledge. I just want to dig in the soil and get the knowledge from there rather than reading a book about it. This week, everybody, trust your ambitions and your aspirations, and also trust the mystery, the dreams of flowers blooming in spring, and the deep, 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 deep soil. As above, so below. Thanks again for being here on Cycles of Time, and for all your comments and responses and feedback and shares, and just, all that engagement means a lot for an emergent creator such as myself. And I just really appreciate anything any 5-star review that you give on any podcast platform, or subscription to the Substack, anything. It's just I don't feel desperate. I feel like I just want to grow the community and talk to more people. It's about what's real during times of lots of things that don't feel really real. So love y'all. Thanks for being here. You can always find me at Astrosomatics on Instagram or Cycles of Time podcast on Instagram, or sometimes on TikTok, rarely. But, if you find an interesting reel that's just too good to pass up, send it my way. And astrosomatics.substack.com is where you can see the visual aids that I've mentioned in the show, as well as subscribe to get this in your inbox every Monday. So thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon in the Great Mystery. Bye-bye.